Hey guys, back with another find. This here is a Craftsman handheld blower. It's 200 mile per hour, 430 CFM with a 25cc 2-cycle engine. Simple technology, so we'll check that out. The model number, this is a model 358-794-700. I don't know the story on this. It was just sitting outside someone's house along the road. So I went ahead, picked it up. We'll do the typical check the spark plug, air filter, fuel. If everything looks good there, we'll put some fresh fuel in there, see if we can start it up, and then we'll go from there. First things first, this thing is just covered in dirt and grime. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick bath and then bring you guys back. Alright, so here we are. Looks better already, doesn't it? This actually came from, if you saw the video where I had that steel backpack blower, it came from the same house. And that steel unit ended up really good. I think it needed a replacement carburetor, air filter, maybe a couple other things, but that was also a good find. So let's first see what we got. It doesn't look like there's any gas in there. Well, there's a little bit. So we will go ahead and remove that. Also, another thing is a lot of the times with these older units you have these fuel lines that deteriorate. These actually in fact look like they're in pretty good shape, so we're going to leave those as they are. Not the best looking fuel there. Now there is dirt in there, and I think that's dirt that was just in this container before I poured the fuel in. Okay, so actually there is, if you look in there, there's quite a bit of dirt residue, so we'll see if we can flush that out. This is some fresh 40-to-1 I've got. So we'll put a little bit in there, agitate it, and see if we can get some of that dirt to come out. A little better. Okay. Next, let's check air filter. A lot of times neglected machines will end up going without an air filter replacement, and having a dirty air filter will just starve the intake and could hinder the performance. Let's see. There it goes. So there is a filter in there. It's just one of those foam filters. Seeing a little bit of moisture from when I rinsed the unit off earlier. So just wipe that out. Overall, that area looks pretty clean. So we'll go ahead and put that back together. That foam filter just presses in there, and then this outer casing will come on and clip into place. Like so. We'll take a look at the spark plug, see if we identify any issues with it. It's actually pretty wet. So I don't know if they recently tried starting it and it wasn't starting. Maybe they were flooding the cylinder. See if we can get a look inside there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's some carbon deposits there on the piston, which is not atypical. This is a Champion RCJ 6Y, and I may have a replacement for that. So let me check that out. We'll go ahead and put a fresh spark plug in there. So I do have a replacement. This is the Champion 852 RCJ 6Y. So we'll go ahead and put that in there. That will eliminate any possibility that there's a failure with the actual spark plug itself. Snug that in. Put the boot back on. So I'm actually going to go ahead and see if we can start it. I'll put some of that fresh 40-to-1 mixture in here. The primer bulb, all this looks in good shape. Primer bulb, carburetor body, does have the choke. The choke seems to be working just fine. So let's put some fuel in here, and then we'll take it outside and see if we can get her to kick over. Alright, what do you guys think? You think it'll kick over first time here? Primer bulb is filling up, which is a good sign. Gonna hit this over, turn the choke on, start. Okay, back in the shop now. You know, I did try starting it twice. It really wasn't giving any sign that it was wanting to kick over. So perhaps it's not getting the fuel it should, or we're not getting spark. So let's check spark. I'm actually going to take this casing off here. I think if we find that it's actually producing spark, I'm gonna go next to the carburetor and see if we're just not getting fuel. Not getting any spark at all. So it could be a bad ignition coil. It also has this cutoff switch in the top, and I wonder if just this switch has failed close in a position where it's just not enabling the engine to start, because it does prevent spark, which is how it actually performs its function. So let's look at that a little bit, see if we can actually bypass that cutoff switch, and that way we can eliminate that as a variable. Yeah, the ignition coil is actually on the back side of the engine here, which is where that feed goes. So that cutoff wire should go probably to that actual ignition coil. So it looks like I'm going to have to actually do some more disassembly to get inside this unit. Just a series of screws that had to come out in order to take this back piece off. Some cable ties here that the previous owner had on there. Okay, and even that doesn't really get me where I need to be. But here's that switch. So we can actually test this switch with a digital multimeter and just check for continuity between the two connectors here. And actually the switch just broke. I don't know if you can see that, but the spade connector just pulled right out of the actual switch body itself. All right, so that stinks. A closed circuit or connection to ground would actually prevent starting. We can actually consider this open circuit here, and we can try to see if we get any spark when we try to start this. Whoop. Try to set that where you guys can see it. Still no spark, but if we were to actually make this connection here, which would be the opposite effect, we can see what that does. Trying to do this, not pull the whole engine off the table here. Try that. No spark. Try one more time. Still no spark. So I'm going to make the guess that the ignition coil's bad. So this whole engine would have to actually come out of the casing to get to the back side, and then it would need a replacement ignition coil installed. Obviously that switch broke when pulling the wire lead off, so that would also have to be replaced as well. So that engine's ready to come out. I just gotta see if I can disconnect this linkage without having to take the carburetor off. Yeah, got it. So here's the ignition coil here. And this is what actually creates spark. And if this module goes bad, then without spark you're not going to get the engine to start. Now, I don't know if you can see right now. If you see the spacing there, oops. Typically you want spacing about the thickness of a business card. I'm talking about right here. But that actually looks a lot more than that, so let me check that. Okay, so I've got that gap now set. Now, to be perfectly honest, I think that was all good from the beginning. I didn't realize that this portion had that step, so when I looked at it from this aspect, the gap seemed to be pretty wide there. But now that I've got it reset, I think we'll be just fine. So I'm not going to expect to see spark when I do put this back in here. I think we're going to have the same situation that we did before. No spark. So I'm actually going to attribute it to a faulty ignition coil. I'll go ahead and get a replacement one of those, and we'll see if that does the trick for us. I was able to get the replacement part off Amazon for less than $20. Now it's pretty easy just doing a Google search to come across parts lists, so that's what I did. Searched the Craftsman parts number, identified a parts list with a replacement part number for this ignition coil, and found it on Amazon, I think $18. The other thing I ordered, which I haven't received yet, was a replacement switch, but I was able to unassemble the switch, and it turns out that the prongs here are just really just pressed into place with some small teeth that grab on the plastic. So I was able to press that one back into place, reassemble, and verify that it's working with a digital ohm meter or digital multimeter by checking continuity. So I'm going to go ahead and just reuse the existing one, then I'll have a replacement coming in the mail should I ever need it in the future. So we'll go ahead and remove this defective coil that's on here. It just held on with those two screws. We'll reuse the existing wiring harness, so that comes off easily. We install it on the new coil. This little ring connector will sit tightly with that second bolt that's installed. You can use a business card. In this case, I'm using that box that came with that spark plug just to set that gap if you don't have any feeler gauges. This works really well. Check our clearance going around, make sure we don't have any scraping or anything like that. So that looks good. So let's go ahead and set it back in the casing. We'll check it again for spark and see if that addressed our issue. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is now giving off spark. Yeah, it's difficult for me to hold this at the same time, but I am seeing spark. So what I'm going to do is put this back together, and then we'll just go ahead and try to start it and see what kind of results we get. So as you saw, still no luck starting it. Tried starting fluid. I tried putting gasoline directly into the cylinder and starting it that way. Still unsuccessful. But by doing that, I can eliminate the fact that there's an issue with the carburetor, at least right now. So it was almost displaying symptoms as if timing were off. So if you had sheared your flywheel key at some point and the timing gets off a little bit with the flywheel, that's kind of what I was seeing here, is where it would start and then there would be times where it would almost sound like it was going to start, but it wouldn't. So what I did, I pulled the whole thing apart again. I inspected the flywheel, didn't see anything concerning there, checked my gap again on the ignition coil, everything looked good. So I then spent some more time trying to start it by again putting fuel directly into the chamber and starting it. But what I observed was, interesting enough, I saw some flames shooting out the side, which I wasn't seeing when I was outside. And when I looked at it more closely, I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's actually a gap in between this cylinder head here and the body. And then upon closer examination, the actual screw, this screw right here, this bolt is actually loose. So that can certainly be an issue. Now, when I was outside, I was able to apply just finger pressure over the spark plug hole, and I was feeling compression, but I don't have a compression gauge, and that's not really an accurate detection system on whether or not I have enough compression in that cylinder or not. But I certainly won't, especially if I have air escaping through this spacing here. So I'm going to check both these cylinder bolts. We'll tighten them down and then give it another shot. All right, so I've got those tightened up. We'll take it outside, see if she'll kick over. All right, guys, so there you go. I think we got it. How to do a couple adjustments here on the carburetor, play with that a little bit to get this engine running a little happy. But overall, took a little bit of work on this one. We had the defective ignition coil, and then just some troubleshooting led to the fact that our cylinder head bolts were loose. So tighten those up, and looks like now we got ourselves a nice little blower. So again, I appreciate you guys sticking with me and watching this video. Hopefully what you saw here today inspires you, if you're an everyday average DIYer, to get out there and work on your small engines yourself. Again, I'm not a certified small engine mechanic or anything like that. I'm just a guy with some tools who likes to get out and tinker with these engines. So thanks again, guys, for watching. Hope to see you again in the next video.